It was February 1st, 1995. A cold morning in London. A plane was waiting. It was going to take a band, the Manic Street Preachers, to America. A big tour was about to start, but one of them wasn't there, Richey Edwards. He was the guitarist. He was also the main lyric writer. He was special. He was supposed to be at the Embassy Hotel. He shared a room with James Dean Bradfield, the singer. But Richey was gone. He just vanished. This isn't just a story about a missing person. It's about a man who was deeply troubled. A man who was a poet, an artist. He was a voice for many people who felt lost. His disappearance is one of music's biggest mysteries. What happened to Richey Edwards? No one really knows, not for sure. Richey Edwards grew up in Blackwood, a small mining town in Wales. He was born Richard James Edwards in 1967. Blackwood was a working-class place. Now, it was pretty gray, but Richey was different. He was smart. He loved books. He loved art. He loved punk music. He was always reading. He went to university in Cardiff. He studied politics. He read a lot of history and philosophy too. He was always thinking. He was always writing. He met the other guys in the Manic Street Preachers there. James Dean Bradfield, Nicky Wire, and Sean Moore. They were friends from school. Richey wasn't a great guitarist, not really, but he had something else. He had ideas. He had a look. He had a way with words. He shaped the band's image. He was their brain, their lyricist. He pushed them to be more than just a band. He wanted them to be important. He wanted them to mean something. The Manics started with a bang. They dressed like rock stars. They wore makeup, they talked about politics, they loved the Clash and Guns N' Roses. They wanted to be huge. They wanted to make albums that were like manifestos. Richey was at the heart of this. He wrote most of the words, he crafted their whole message. He wanted to change things. He wanted to be a voice for the forgotten. But underneath all that glitter and anger, Richey was struggling. He had a lot of pain inside him. This started showing early on. In 1991, a journalist from NME, Steve Lamacq, questioned the band's authenticity. He asked if they were for real. Richey didn't like that. He got out a razor blade. He carved "for real" into his forearm, right there in front of the journalist. He needed 17 stitches. This was a shock. It showed how serious he was. It also showed how much he was hurting. It was a cry for help. That incident became famous. It made Richey legendary in a way. But it also showed everyone he was not okay. He was battling depression. He was struggling with anorexia. He was self-harming. These were not new things for him. They were part of his life for a while. Fame just made it all worse. The pressure of being in a band, being seen as a spokesperson, it was a lot. He was sensitive. He felt things deeply. The band kept going. Their first album, Generation Terrorists, was full of big statements. Then came Gold Against the Soul, but things were getting darker for Richey. He spent time in hospitals, he went for therapy, he was trying to get help. But it didn't seem to work very well for him. The darkness stayed. It grew bigger inside him. Then came the Holy Bible. This album is so important to understanding Richey. It came out in 1994. It was stark, it was bleak, it was brilliant. Richey wrote almost all the lyrics for it. He poured all his pain into those songs. He wrote about everything that was wrong with the world. He wrote about consumerism, he wrote about fascism, he wrote about serial killers, he wrote about the Holocaust, he wrote about his own mental illness. The recording of the Holy Bible was hard. Richey was very unwell during this time. He was barely eating, he was drinking too much. Well, he was self-harming more. The other band members saw it, they tried to help him. But he was deep in his own world. He used his lyrics as a way to cope, maybe, or a way to just get it all out. He didn't care if it was pretty. He wanted it to be true. He wanted it to be honest. The lyrics are raw, they are disturbing, but they are beautiful too in a dark way. They are a window into his soul. Songs like 4th 7LB talked about anorexia. D in the Summertime was about wishing for death. PCP was about his struggle with medication. He was living these songs, he was living his pain, and he was putting it all out there for the world to hear. You know, it was brave, it was heartbreaking. After the Holy Bible came out, the band toured. Richey was still struggling. There were times he couldn't perform. He was too sick. He was too weak. He spent more time in hospitals. He went to the Priory, a famous clinic. He was trying to get better. Everyone hoped he would. The band loved him. They knew how important he was. Not just as a band member, but as a person. They were a family. But then came the US tour. It was February 1995. The band was going to America. It was a big deal. They were flying out on February 1st. They were staying at the Embassy Hotel in London beforehand. Richey was there. James Dean Bradfield was sharing a room with him. The night before, Richey was quiet. He wasn't talking much. He was withdrawn. This wasn't new. But there was something different. James remembers Richey telling him he was going for a walk. He did. James woke up later. Richey was back in the room. He was just sitting there. He wasn't saying anything. The next morning, February 1st, everyone was getting ready to leave. They were supposed to meet the band's manager, Martin Hall, in the lobby. James left the room first. He thought Richey was coming right behind him, but Richey didn't come. Martin Hall went to check the room. Richey wasn't there, his wallet was in the room. His car keys were in the room, his packed suitcase was in the room, but he was gone. No one saw him leave, no one saw him after that morning. He just evaporated. The band and manager waited. They called his family. They started to worry. Something was wrong. Richey wouldn't just miss a flight without telling anyone. Not like this. Not with a tour waiting. 2 weeks later, on February 14th, Richey's Vauxhall Cavalier car was found. It was at the Oss Service Station. This is near the Severn Bridge. The Severn Bridge crosses the River Severn between England and Wales. It's a place that, sadly, many people go to end their lives. This discovery made everyone fear the worst. The car had been there for a while, parking ticket was on it, but no Richey. The police started a search. They looked everywhere. His family put out appeals. His bandmates begged for information, but nothing came up. No body was ever found. The theories started right away. The main one was suicide, because of the car being at the Severn Bridge. Because of Richey's long history of depression and self-harm, many thought he finally just couldn't go on. His state of mind during the Holy Bible era, his general despair, it all pointed to this. It was a tragic but understandable conclusion for many. But then there was another theory. He faked his own death. This theory had some interesting clues. First, Richey had talked about disappearing before. He often spoke about the idea of just leaving, of becoming a missing person. He was fascinated by people who vanished. Second, he emptied his bank account. He took out £2,800 a couple of weeks before he disappeared. That's about $3,500. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was all he had in his current account. Third, he left some things behind. He left his car keys, his passport, things you'd need if you were trying to leave the country in a normal way. Fourth, he gave a book to a friend, Joe, just before he vanished. The book was called Novel with Cocaine. He put a note inside it. It just said, "I love you." The book is about a character who fakes his own death. This seemed like a very specific choice. Fifth, he gave another friend a book about escaping to the Amazon rainforest. Again, a very specific type of book. Sixth, some reports said he told James Dean Bradfield that he hoped he loved his family. This was taken as a goodbye. So, was it a planned disappearance, or was it suicide? Or something else entirely? No one knew, and no one knows now. Over the years, there have been so many supposed sightings of Richey. People reported seeing him in Goa, India. People said they saw him in the Canary Islands and Lanzarote. People said they saw him in a bar in London. A woman from South Wales reported seeing him in a hippie commune. One story even said he was working as a waiter in a restaurant. His sister Rachel spent years following up on every single one of these. She traveled, she talked to people, she chased every glimmer of hope, but every lead went nowhere. Every sighting was either mistaken or couldn't be confirmed. It was heartbreaking for his family. They just wanted to know. The Manic Street Preachers were devastated. Richey was more than just a bandmate. He was a brother. They didn't know what to do. They thought about breaking up. How could they go on without Richey? He was so central to their identity, but they decided to continue. They left his share of the money in the bank. They never officially replaced him. He was always there, an unspoken fourth member. They put out their next album, Everything Must Go, in 1996. It was a huge success. It was a tribute to Richey in many ways. It had a song called A Design for Life that felt like it was about him, about their shared journey. The band kept making music, they got bigger, they became one of the most important British bands of their generation. But Richey's absence was always felt. It shaped their sound, it shaped their message. They became more hopeful in some ways, but the darkness was still there, a shadow of what they had lost. Years later, in 2009, they released an album called Journal for Plague Lovers. This album was special. All the lyrics on it were written by Richey. They were lyrics he had left behind. They were poems and writings he had given to the band before he vanished. They were from that dark, intense Holy Bible period. The band took his words and put music to them. It was like he was still there, still creating with them. It was a powerful, beautiful, and haunting album. It showed how much he still meant to them, how much his words still resonated. Richey's family never gave up hope. His sister, Richey Edwards, became a fierce advocate for missing people. She campaigned for better support for families like hers. She never stopped looking for him. Her parents, Graham and Sherry, lived with the pain of not knowing for decades. They passed away without ever knowing what happened to their son. That's a terrible thing, to live with that question mark for so long. In 2008, Richey was officially presumed dead. This is a legal thing. After 7 years of being missing, a person can be declared dead. But his family never truly accepted it. they believe he could still be alive. And if he isn't, they want to find out what happened. They want closure. It's hard to have closure when there's no body, no answers. Richey Edwards left behind a huge legacy. He was more than just a musician. He was an artist, he was a poet, he was an intellectual, he pushed boundaries. He made people think. He spoke about things that were uncomfortable, he spoke about pain, about mental health, about the emptiness of modern life. He did it with style and a sharp mind. His words are still powerful today, his image too. He became an icon for people who feel different, for people who struggle. He represented a kind of vulnerability and honesty that was rare in music, especially at that time. He showed that it was okay to be complex, to be dark, to be angry. The mystery of his disappearance has never been solved. It hangs over the Manic Street Preachers, it hangs over his family, it hangs over everyone who loved his music and his message. Was it suicide? The Severn Bridge hints at it, his history points to it, but no body was found. Was it a planned disappearance? The clues he left behind, the books, the money, they suggest he wanted to vanish, to start a new life, to escape the pressure, to become someone else. But if so, why has he never made contact? Why leave his family in such pain? The truth is probably simpler and sadder. Maybe it was suicide and his body was carried out to sea. Or maybe he did plan to disappear, but something else happened to him after he left the bridge. We don't know. We might never know, and that's the hardest part, the not knowing. Richey Edwards was a bright, troubled star. He burned so intensely, and then he was gone. But his words remain, his music remains, and the question remains, why did a star musician vanish on the eve of a US tour? And what happened next? The silence is the only answer we have, and it's a heavy, sad silence. He is still missed. His story is still told, because it's a story about a searching soul, about art, about pain, and about a mystery that refuses to let go.